We're here at Sport Beach. We are about to welcome a guest on, which I'm pretty excited about, even though he's a Buffalo Bill, and I'm a diehard Patriots guy, Damar Hamlin. And Damar is a super talented safety for the Bills, but he's perhaps most well known, at least on the football field, for an incident that happened now almost 3 years ago, I guess.
2023.
Yeah, 2023. Damar had a cardiac arrest on the football field. Died, and they stopped the game down. They ended up actually postponing the entire game, which I don't think has really happened
Never happened
in the history
before.
of the NFL. I think it was a Monday night football game. So, millions of people were watching it live, and it really shook, I think the sports world. And so Damar's going to join us to talk really about like the other side of that.
Yep.
He's talked at length about that experience.
Yep.
He was in the hospital for 9 days, I think, afterwards. So, this conversation is not really going to focus on what happened, but I think what you and I have been talking about is this idea, and obviously eager to see what he has to say about life after death and what that experience taught him about life and purpose and what he's doing now.
Across religious and spiritual traditions, we have an idea of being born again, or in India, being reborn, the idea of a resurrection, that you can have a new life in this life. And when you have that kind of experience, whether it's a near-death experience or a religious conversion experience or some kind of mystical experience, or just, something happens that fundamentally changes the way you act and move in the world, you in some ways do become a new person. Now he's back on the Bills. He's still playing football. It's an incredible redemption arc, quite frankly. But yes, I think it would be impossible to not fundamentally have your point of view changed and to see things in a way that you might not have seen them before, having gone through an experience like this.
Yeah, really fascinating. And this is the type of people that are passing through the Sport Beach over the next few days. I don't know if we've got an official number on how many thousands of people, dozens and dozens.
It's going to get bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah.
It's incredible what it is already after, I think this is its fourth year.
Yeah.
And so it's going to just keep growing.
All right. Well, so joined by Damar Hamlin.
How you guys doing?
Psyched to have you here, man.
It's an honor to be here.
We're really grateful for this opportunity, and we're sitting here in Cannes, and you and I were in Rome last week, but unlike me, you were hanging out with the Pope. So let's start there. This is a Religion of Sports podcast. There's no better place to start. Tell us about that.
Oh, it was an amazing experience. So I got to meet the Pope. I got to give him a signed jersey. Got to share a few, seconds with him. Got to just tell him some things that, I'm like dealing with in my life, and just things that I wanted prayed over. And it was just an extremely connecting moment. Not everybody gets the opportunity to meet the Pope.
Very few.
So I submerged myself in the moment as much as I could, soaked it all in. And, I got a game ball prayed over, and I'm gonna give it to my high school. I went to Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I know they will appreciate that extremely. They truly connected me, to my own self in such a spiritual way. So, to return that favor to my high school would be super amazing.
And the American Pope, huh?
Yes,
it's incredible that we have an American Pope, and you saw Spike gave him a Knicks jersey, and they won the championship. So when the Bills win, we'll go back to the Vatican.
We're keeping it all in New York this year.
Though I do have a confession to make. Speaking of religion and sports, is I'm a Patriots fan, which you may or may not know.
Heard you.
But I'm also, I will say, because one of the things I love, and even as hard as for me as a diehard Celtics fan to watch the Knicks winning, watching long-suffering fan bases sort of get their deliverance, so to speak. Yeah. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, it's you can celebrate with them in a way.
Yeah, and so the Bills, one of the most storied franchises, one of the most talented teams, with you and
Canada's
your
team.
teammates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So, and the new
Right by the
stadium,
border.
right? Like, so that place is going to be a pilgrimage site for many years to come. It looks amazing.
Seems like all the stars are aligning, right?
Week 2, Patriots are opening that with you guys.
And throughout free agency this year, I had a few options to, go pursue other places, maybe like for more money in my contract and things like that. Obviously I have a personal tie to Buffalo very deeply, to the fans and the place. That means a lot to me to play for something more than just a dollar amount. But on top of all of that, to be able to, be a part of the first team that brings a Super Bowl to such a great city. Buffalo is the city of good neighbors. Everyone cares for one another. Everyone shows up, and those people are at every game, no matter rain, sleet, snow, hail. So to be a part of the first team that brings a championship to Buffalo would mean anything more to me in my football career. So, that opportunity to continue to pursue what we've been doing the last 5 years, because I've been in the NFL 5 seasons so far, and I felt like I was going to win the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah.
Just sometimes the results don't always come your way. That's a very, very good life lesson that I'm, preaching to everybody else. So to be a part of that, man, it means a lot, and, I'm super committed.
How do you think about that, the inner game? There's the outer game, right, the physical game, the skill set, but there's also the inner game, the mindset. It's sort of what's happening inside of you. How do you think about your own, what's happening inside of you based on what's happening outside of you? All the noise, all the distraction, all the doubt. What practices do you have to keep yourself aligned to your North Star? You're not going to win the Super Bowl every year. That doesn't mean it wasn't a successful year, or there wasn't something that you learned, or that it wasn't extraordinary in some way, right? So how do you think about that, the results versus process, the inner game versus the outer game?
I think that's everything. I practice what I preach, and that is truly my process. You have to master the inner game to be able to have success in the outer game at this level, because there's so much other components to the outer game that will throw you off of life's track.
Right.
It will not only affect your performance on the field, but it will affect how you show up in your family relationships with. It will show up how you show up in the business world. It'll really take a toll on you if you don't truly have your inner process mastered, because you're not always going to get the results at the end of that process. Mm-hmm. And if you're only attached to those end results, then you'll be just riding a roller coaster of emotions, and that's the most dangerous thing that you can do in this profession, because it is truly like a nerve-wracking thing. You can work so hard and be so committed, and you can come up short. How do you bounce back from that? You have to believe in your process, and I have to give a big shout out right here to our former head coach Sean McDermott, because he was truly the greatest that I ever seen at being process oriented. I remember the 2024 season, we were playing the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs, and super big game. The Ravens, they have been the biggest threat to me. Like playing Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, that is not an easy task. You know what I mean? And they have guys that are superstars outside to throw the ball to. But that night before the game that we played them, he came in the team meeting room, and we talked about process all week. We worked on our process all week. And then, that night of the game, he just truly just gave us a message that stuck with me forever. Stay process oriented. The crowd is for everybody else. We truly stay in the moment of this game, have fun. And at the end of the day, 5-10 years from now, nobody will ever even remember the results of who won this game. So go have fun with your brothers, and truly stay dived in that process. And I'm sitting there in my chair in the front row, and I was just like I was expecting a rah message, I was expecting like a rah screaming, like we got to be ready, we got to go take guys. But it was just so process oriented, and just based about being in the moment, having fun with your brothers. And that was everything for me.
So obviously your journey has been unique, in terms of what you've experienced on the football field. Can you talk about everything you're talking about? Clearly it's being surrounded by the right teammates, mentors, and that ongoing learning. But how much has your mentality and your approach to football and your approach to life sort of shifted in light of of the incident that happened back in 2023? I think one of the things I'm really interested in just understanding is what you learned out of that process. You've talked at length about what happened, but I'm more curious about how has it changed you, I guess?
Honestly, I got to give credit to my parents first and foremost, and also just who I was as a person, because I've always felt like a deeper connection to just the reasons of why I was doing things the right way. I was truly raised to not cut corners. I was raised to, my favorite quote as a kid growing up was, "Go hard, you never know who's watching," and things like that. So I've always had a good process within myself to, overcome adversity and be resilient and be persistent and be consistent in the things that you love. My parents taught me at a young age, you got to sacrifice for the things that you want in this life and that you love. So, when I dealt with, the adversity that the world's seen, all I did was rely back on my family, my teachings that they taught me, and who I was as a person. I didn't have to go search the world, and it was a tough process to navigate the world that came to me. And, I truly had to weed out the outside distractions so that I could stay right in my process. And, to be able to do that in that moment was the thing that I think I learned the most is you are who you are for a reason. God chose you for a reason. This is all a part of the plan. And it all summed up to the person that I always have been, so I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of out of all of it, is because I didn't have to become anybody that I already wasn't. The world just got to meet me for who I already was. Wow. Yeah. And, that's what truly made me realize that it was truly a different level of spiritual experience, because I'm the same person that I was as a young kid. It's just I feel like God just brung his hand down, grabbed me and said, "I'm going to use you. I've seen you doing the work already, and I'm truly going to use you for a different purpose, a different calling, and here you go. Just go show the world who you are." And there's a lot of things that came in that, when you meet the world, it's you have so many opportunities to chase worldly things. When you meet the world, or when the world meets you, you can start to chase worldly things. But, I truly have stayed grounded in who I've always been this whole time. It makes me smile.
I love that. I really love that you sort of doubled down on who you were as opposed to try to find a whole new you. That means you were living the right way.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to, be able to get back into the game and, shape my mindset to be able to, go out there and do that again if I didn't already have my base of who I was. People touch the stove and realize it's hot and won't ever do it again, let alone, something that, tried to take you out of here.
Yep. Well, this is the first time I've met you, but I've admired you from afar for a long time. Your resilience, your faith, your strengths, your sort of North Star, what you mean to people and how you give back.
Thank you.
What does it mean for you to live a good life? We're all trying to chase this as humans, As an athlete, of course, you have a goal, the Super Bowl, but as a human, you have a goal. And I think that goal is living a meaningful, purposeful, good life. Now that you've achieved so much in your career and you've checked all the boxes that I would think of as a good life, family, faith, philanthropy, football.
Definitely.
What does it mean for you?
I think living a good life to me is just staying perspective based, always finding the good in any moment, because I remember when life, there was sometimes where, it was very extremely hard to, find that thing that was able to pick me back up. Yeah. So I think I truly believe that, you get your blessings by being a blessing, so, just something as simple as, walking in the room with light and being able to, lift others up by your presence and by how you carry your own self. That's living a good life to me. When you're able to find joy in small things and always find something to be grateful for, I think you can stay connected to, that good feeling of a good life. Yeah. And I think it's just doing right by everybody you come in paths with. Stand dedicated to whatever it is that moves your heart, whatever it is your passion is, and then keep chasing that, and this is something I've been dealing with in my personal life, so I speak about it a lot, but, navigating the world, and not honestly living for the world, because like social media has spiked up and there's so many careers that you can start off of that. And, I think they are, truly passion-based purposes for some people, but I think when you become living for the world in too many ways, you can kind of get detached from things, and you'll meet a point where, you might hit rock bottom, and like the world can bring you to that. So just stay connected to a higher purpose, do right by the people that you cross paths with, and honestly just have perspective so that you can always learn and grow in every situation.
Have you found, you truly are spreading the gospel of the religion of sports, I'd say.
We're all evangelists here.
But have you found, are other teammates, athletes, even here, I imagine you're meeting people very interested in your story. Are you getting to share this message? Is that now part of your role beyond, delivering hopefully a Super Bowl to the Bills? Do you find people are...
Yeah, and I think it's just a part of who I am.
Yeah.
The people who closest to me, they know, like my friends, I talk all day about just things that move me. That's just what I like to do. So it's a part of who I am, right. And I'm a jokester. I'm goofy. I have a really goofy personality side to me with the people who I love. But I definitely feel like it's a obligation of mine, because I just feel like naturally in the world it's a shortage on leadership in the right way. It's a lot of people that's doing things in a lot of different categories, and I just want to be able to say, when the younger generation who will be in charge of this world tomorrow, I want them to say, if they look my way, I did things the right way, and they want to do things the right way because of me, because I have role models who did things like that. Yep. I love your shirt. I said I love your shirt because it's the Black Mamba. Yep. That's how I view Kobe Bryant. That's someone I looked up to. I look up to LeBron James. I look up to, and all of my role models aren't necessarily, say, picture perfect people, but I see the greatness in people, and I know the reason why that they were chasing what they were chasing. So I make sense of that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, and I've had the incredible fortune of working with LeBron a little bit, and look, he's in the GOAT conversation. He's one of one, of course, but my admiration for LeBron is a lot of what he's done outside of basketball. Yes. What he's done in his hometown, Akron, and also just at least publicly, the life he's led as a good father. And just, all the many things that he's involved in beyond basketball. I know you're doing stuff outside of just, outside of football. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about some of the other activities you have going on and some of the things you're talking about here at Sport Beach.
It's interesting that you say, you mentioned LeBron and what he did for Akron, because as a young kid, seeing him do that and seeing him open up, his school and things like that, that was what inspired me to be able to this is what I want to do. I want to make it to the NFL. I want to be able to give back to my community. He truly inspired that work, and so my philanthropy work started out in simply youth empowerment, being a young kid who, had all of these dreams in the world, but, no role models to truly let me know if I'm following the right steps on my path to get where I say I want to go. So first thing I did leaving college was host a toy drive for, my local community in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania. And, I gave back. I started a GoFundMe link. I did a match with the GoFundMe link, and we did that for 2 years. And obviously I was blessed with, so many people who seen the work that I was doing already and donated to, my foundation. And we just were blessed with a new platform. And I always say, whenever you have a heart that's willing to serve others, and you're willing to put the work behind the passion, then it can become a passion. So, we've made so much tremendous space in CPR and AED education. During the NFL draft this year, it was in my hometown of Pittsburgh. We reached our millionth dollar that we donated in AEDs to underserved youth sports groups all across the community. There was 31 states that didn't have laws as far as AEDs required in schools. Through the NFL Smart Hearts Coalition, we were able to make progress there. We played in LA 2024. We got back at 6 a.m. I had to stay up until 10 a.m. because the senator was coming in town so we could sign a bill into law.
Wow.
And last year, training camp, the governor of New York came to our training camp practice, I think for the first time ever, and signed another bill into law as well. So, we've been able to be a part of, not only just making impact and inspiring kids across the world, but also saving lives of people that, I may never meet one day.
That's right. That's beautiful. Maybe one last question. We talk a lot about this idea of energy, fan energy. Like, can the energy in a stadium change the outcome of a game? Or can what someone thinks of you have an impact on you, even if you don't know it or feel it? It's hard to think of any athlete in my lifetime who, there are a lot of haters out there. Athletes have a lot of hate. But you had a moment of intense love and prayer and, goodwill across the fan base. What did that feel like? Was that energy? Could you feel that energy? Like, you obviously knew how many people were loving you up, cheering you up, and continue to do so. You're so beloved. And so what is that? And that to me probably feels different than the fan energy in the stadium.
Yeah.
What is that?
I think it's fueling. Like, it was very fueling, man. Like, opening my eyes up and, just seeing how the world was receiving me, it was hard to believe. Like, it was hard to even think that it was real, but it was so fueling. It was so charging. Like, it made me want to repay it 1,000 times over. And I think still till this day, it's the reason why I move how I move and how I go about things how I do, because of how much love I received. So I think, obviously, I think it's a part of, just a part of me receiving my blessings. I wanna pour that back into the world. But my situation, like you said, it's a lot of haters.
Yep.
I think, it was a lot of hate that came off of that situation too. People assumed that I was a clone. People assumed that I wasn't real. Like, I was not a real person. People assumed just because, I had this situation where people showed me so much love and now I'm okay, that all of a sudden I'm just not a good football player. Like, I would not still be here doing this thing if I was not a good football player.
That's right.
But we don't focus on that part of life. That's always everywhere. You can find that anywhere. And if they say if you don't got haters, you ain't doing something good.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but the love, I definitely want to focus on the love. The love was charging. The love was refueling. And I think if everyone just tries to show love, spread love to others, it'll uplift everyone. It'll snatch the hate out of people's heart. All the people have hate in their heart because they don't receive love that they want. It's envy and jealousy kind of gets mixed up. Like, it'd be love and envy together that creates the hate. So spread love. Spread love.
Love it.
What a great message, man. It was really an honor to have you and to be part of spreading this message. And I am going to hit you up. I'm going to hang a Bills jersey up on my wall.
We're going to be rooting for you this year, for sure, man.
Maybe not week 2, but every other week.
Week 2, and we see you again.
Sure.
2 weeks, but other than that, we'll be family.
I have actually, I just look at that team and, I don't know Josh Allen, but he's just one of the truly talented quarterbacks right now in the league, and feels come close so many times. So I'm excited for the season. This new stadium looks incredible. So
yeah, Josh is truly doing his part, and we got to make sure that we do ours so that we can get him what he deserves, because he is truly one of one, a special talent. He makes me better. I think that's something I don't even get to talk about as much, of how much Josh Allen makes me a better player. I get to play against him all spring. I get to play against him all training camp, and then I get to go against all of the other 31 quarterbacks in the league. if I'm able to trick Josh Allen and think of him and make him think that it's this coverage when it's not this coverage, or I'm making him pump fake the ball all the way like to the ground. And Josh does some amazing, crazy things throughout the spring and throughout training camp. But I'm able to learn so much. I'm able to go up, ask some questions like what were you thinking on that? And it has made me, from my rookie season till now, it has made me truly, like, I can say I felt like a veteran safety from year 2 because of playing against Josh Allen so much. So, like, I think that's an underestimated, like, thing within me. Like, I get to play against Josh Allen. This is my 6th year playing against Josh Allen, and I'm just excited to continue to, be a part of his team. That was a part of free agency as well. Like, if you have Josh Allen on your team, it don't matter how much time is on the clock, you feel like you have a chance to win. That makes football fun. Like, that makes football fun. It don't matter how ugly the game is. We went to New England last year and we're down 21 points at halftime. But we had Josh Allen.
He remembers that.
I do remember. And so what you're saying is you're not intimidated by Drake May. I get it. I hear you, because you go against Josh Allen
I love Drake May.
So, yeah. No, it's going to be a fun season. Can't wait to watch. Thanks again for being here. Good luck over the next few days
here.
That
was special.
Thank you.